Story 1. The maintenance request I never sent. At 2:14 a.m., my phone lit up on the nightstand with a soft vibration, just one buzz. I remember the time because I had been awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the bathroom fan hum through the wall. The email preview read, "Maintenance request confirmation, Unit 4B." I hadn't submitted anything. The message was brief. Bathroom mirror issue reported, technician access approved, estimated service window, tomorrow between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. I live alone. I hadn't contacted management in months. I hadn't even noticed an issue with the mirror. For a few seconds, I assumed it was a system error. The building's portal glitches sometimes. I set my phone back down and told myself I'd deal with it in the morning, but I didn't fall asleep after that. The bathroom fan had shut off earlier. I was sure of it. I always turn it off before bed. Now I could hear it again, faint, steady, not loud, just present. I lay there listening to it until sometime after 3. By the time I checked my inbox again at 7:12 a.m., the confirmation email was still there. No follow-up, no correction. I logged into the tenant portal from my laptop. There it was, request submitted, 2:14 a.m. category, bathroom fixtures. Description: mirror instability. Access from inside is easier when they're asleep. I read that sentence 3 times. I live alone. The portal showed the request originating from my unit number. No IP address listed, no additional details. I told myself it had to be some kind of internal note. Maybe maintenance uses strange shorthand. Maybe someone copied text into the wrong field. That explanation held for about an hour. Then I walked into the bathroom. The mirror looked better. It's an old rectangular mirror glued to the wall, slightly warped at the edges. For months, there's been a faint, cloudy streak along the lower left corner where the silver backing is deteriorating. I've noticed it every morning while brushing my teeth. That streak was lighter now. Not gone. Just reduced. I stepped closer. The glass was unusually clean. No water spots, no toothpaste flecks. I hadn't cleaned it in at least a week. I opened the medicine cabinet beside it and checked behind the frame. Nothing obvious. No new screws. No cracks in the drywall. But when I reached up to turn on the bathroom light, my fingers brushed against the vent cover above the mirror. It shifted slightly under my touch. It never shifts. I grabbed a step stool from the kitchen and climbed up. The vent cover had been removed recently. I could tell because one of the screws wasn't fully tightened. It angled slightly downward instead of flush. There was a thin ring of pale dust around the edges where it had been disturbed. Drywall dust. Very fine. Almost like chalk. I climbed down slowly. The maintenance window was scheduled for later that morning, but someone had already been inside, or something had been accessed from inside. I checked the locks on my door. The deadbolt was still engaged. The chain was exactly where I leave it every night. The windows were locked. I don't have a balcony. I called the leasing office at 9:03 a.m. The woman who answered sounded distracted. "I received a maintenance confirmation last night," I said, "but I didn't submit a request." She paused. I could hear typing. "Yes, I see it here," she said. "Bathroom mirror issue. It was marked as tenant initiated." "I didn't initiate it." Another pause. "Well, the system shows it came from your resident login." "I was asleep at 2:14 a.m. She didn't respond immediately to that. "Would you like me to cancel the technician?" I thought about the vent cover, the mirror, the dust. "No," I said. "Let it stay." No one came between 10 and 12. I stayed home from work to be sure. At 12:37 p.m., I received another email. Work order completed. Completed. I hadn't heard a knock, no doorbell, no tools, no footsteps in the hallway. I checked the bathroom again. The vent screws were now tightened perfectly. Flush, symmetrical, cleaner than the rest of the hardware. The mirror was clearer. The cloudy streak had faded further, like something had been adjusted behind it, and the room smelled faintly different. Not cleaning spray, not mildew, drywall dust. That dry mineral smell that lingers after something has been cut open. I stood there long enough for the overhead light to feel warm on my scalp. There are only two ways into my apartment: the front door and the ceiling access panel in the hallway closet that leads to the building's shared crawl space. I have never opened it. I dragged the step stool into the hallway. The panel is about 2 feet wide, painted the same beige as the ceiling. I had to push firmly to slide it aside. A fine line of white dust fell onto my shoulder when it moved. The crawl space above was dark, unfinished. Insulation, beams, wiring, and a narrow wooden plank laid across 2 joists, positioned directly above the hallway leading to my bathroom. It looked recently placed. The wood was lighter than the surrounding beams. There were faint scuff marks along it, like something had been dragged across. I stood there on the stool, looking into that narrow, dark space, feeling the air from above settle cool against my face. The plank led in the direction of the bathroom vent. I climbed down, closed the panel, locked my front door again, even though it was already locked. That night, I didn't turn off the bathroom light. At 2:14 a.m., I was awake again. This time, I wasn't looking at the ceiling. I was looking at the hallway closet door. At 2:17 a.m., I heard a soft sound above me. Not footsteps exactly, more like weight shifting slowly across wood, deliberate, controlled. It stopped after a few seconds. I didn't move. I didn't call out. I waited. The bathroom fan clicked on by itself. A low hum filled the apartment, and then through the thin wall I heard something else, a subtle vibration from the mirror, a faint, hollow tap from inside the wall cavity behind it. Not random. Measured. Once, then again. I stayed in bed until morning. At 7:02 a.m., I logged back into the maintenance portal. There was a new update added to the original request. Status: follow-up required. Note: adjustment incomplete. Resident remains unaware. My account showed as active. Logged in at 2:16 a.m. From Unit 4B. I changed my password immediately. It didn't matter. The login history refreshed a minute later. Still active. Still from my unit. And beneath the original description, beneath the line about access being easier when they're asleep, someone had added one more sentence. Mirror access optimal during fan operation. I haven't turned the fan on since, but sometimes around 2:14 a.m., I wake up to the sound of it already running. And the mirror looks a little clearer every morning. If you enjoy slow, unsettling horror stories, consider liking the video and subscribing. Story 2, The Neighbor Who Only Exists at Night. At 2:07 a.m., something hit the floor above me hard enough to flex the ceiling. Not a drop, not an accident, a controlled impact. I know the time because I had already been awake, listening to someone walk back and forth over my bedroom for the last 10 minutes. The footsteps weren't fast, they weren't angry. They were slow, even, measured, like someone counting distance. The first night I noticed it, I assumed I had loud neighbors. The second night I checked the clock. The third night I started writing down the times. 1:41 a.m., pacing starts. 1:58 a.m., water runs briefly. 2:07 a.m., something heavy settles into place. Every night, between 1:30 and 3 a.m., the unit above me came alive. During the day, it didn't exist. No shower sounds, no TV, no doors closing, no voices, just silence. I work from home 3 days a week. I'm here constantly. I would know if someone lived above me. On the 6th night, I opened the tenant portal and checked the occupancy map. Unit 4C, the apartment above mine, was listed as vacant. I emailed management the next morning. They replied within an hour. That unit has been empty for 3 months. I didn't respond, because at 1:41 a.m. the following night, the pacing started again. Only this time I left my bedroom and stood in the center of my living room. The sound wasn't muffled, it was clear. Heel, pause, shift, heel. Not random footsteps, intentional weight. At 1:58, water turned on above my kitchen. I could hear the pipes align inside the wall. It ran for maybe 15 seconds, then stopped. At 2:07, something heavy pressed down directly above where I was standing. Not a bang, more like a person lowering themselves carefully onto the floor, testing it. I didn't sleep that night. The next evening I went upstairs. The 4th floor hallway smelled stale, like unused carpet. I stood outside 4C at 1:40 a.m. The building was silent. Then I heard it, the first step. But I didn't hear it from inside 4C. I heard it above me, which wasn't possible. There's no 5th floor. The ceiling above the hallway is solid concrete. Still, I heard weight move across it. Slow, even. I knocked on 4C anyway. The pacing stopped immediately. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It felt attentive, like something was waiting for me to do something else. I pressed my ear against the door. Nothing. No airflow. No electrical hum. I tried the handle. Locked. As I turned to leave, the pacing resumed, but not above, behind me, in the hallway. I froze. There was no one there. The sound continued, moving parallel to the wall, exactly where my apartment would be below. I walked quickly to the stairwell and descended. The footsteps stayed aligned with me. When I reached my floor, they were directly overhead again. I entered my apartment at 1:56 a.m. and didn't turn on any lights. At 1:58, my kitchen faucet turned on. I saw it happen. The handle rotated slowly. Water flowed at steady pressure. It ran for about 15 seconds, then shut off. At 2:07, something lowered itself onto my bedroom floor. Not from above, inside. I didn't go in there. I stood in the hallway and listened. There was breathing, not loud, just enough to recognize the rhythm. It wasn't panicked, it wasn't rushed. It sounded like someone resting after walking a long distance. Eventually, it stopped. No door opened, no window moved, nothing left. Morning light came through the blinds around 6:30. I checked the bedroom. Nothing was overturned, nothing broken, but the carpet showed faint compression marks. A narrow path from the door to the window, and back, not straight, slightly uneven, as if whoever walked it wasn't perfectly familiar with the spacing yet. That detail bothered me more than anything. That night, I didn't wait in my bedroom. I sat at my kitchen table. At 1:41 a.m., I heard the first step. Behind me. Not above, not in the hallway, inside my apartment. Slow, careful, exploratory. I didn't turn around, I just listened. The steps moved toward the bedroom, paused, then returned. The weight was heavier this time. More confident. At 2:07, something lowered itself onto the couch across from me. The cushions dipped slightly. I saw the fabric shift, but nothing was there. I could feel the air change, like someone occupying space, breathing, resting, waiting. The next morning, I checked the leasing portal again. Unit 4C still showed as vacant, but the building map had updated. My unit number was now listed twice, once on the 3rd floor, and once directly above it. I didn't contact management again, because I think I understand now. The pacing wasn't coming from above, and it wasn't random. It was measuring, learning, rehearsing, and it doesn't need the apartment upstairs anymore. Story 3. There's an apartment number that doesn't exist. At 2 a.m., the hallway motion light turned on by itself. I was standing at my door, keys in hand, about to step inside. The light wasn't near me. It was halfway down the corridor, directly between units 311 and 313. No one was there. The carpet was empty. The air was still. But the light stayed on, as if someone had just walked out of something that didn't exist. I live on the third floor of a mid-rise building with long, straight hallways and evenly spaced doors. The numbering is simple: 301 through 318, sequential, clean. Except it isn't. Across from my place is 310. To its right is 311, then 313. There's no 312. I didn't notice it at first. Most buildings skip 13. Not 12, but I assumed it was a design quirk, maybe a utility closet behind the wall, maybe architectural constraints. It didn't feel important until the package arrived. It was a small brown box sitting outside my door one evening when I got home from work. The label was slightly smudged, but clear enough. Unit 312, third floor. My building's address. No name, just the number. I stood there longer than necessary, staring at it. The hallway was quiet. The overhead lights hummed softly. There is no 312. I picked up the package. It was light. No return address. I walked it down to the leasing office. The manager looked at the label, then looked at me. "That unit doesn't exist," she said a little too quickly. "I know." She held the box for a few seconds without moving. Then she placed it behind the desk, out of sight. "Probably a system error," she added. "Shipping glitch. Shouldn't it return to sender?" She didn't answer that. Instead, she said, "If anything else strange happens, let us know." It wasn't what I'd asked. That night, I paid attention to the hallway more carefully. Between 311 and 313 is a blank section of wall about 6 feet wide, painted the same beige as everything else. No seams, no indentation, just uninterrupted drywall. But when I walked past it slowly, I noticed something subtle. The temperature shifted. Not dramatically, just a faint drop. Cool air brushing against my arm for half a second. I stopped and pressed my palm against the wall, colder than the rest. I knocked on it lightly. The sound echoed differently. Hollow. Not like insulation behind drywall, more like space. I told myself I was imagining it. Buildings settle. HVAC ducts run behind walls. Sound travels strangely. I went inside and tried to forget it. Around 2 a.m., the hallway motion light flicked on again. I know the time because I'd been scrolling on my phone in bed, and the faint change in brightness slipped under my door. I got up, opened it slowly. The light was on directly in front of the blank wall. No footsteps, no voices, just illumination. After about 15 seconds, it turned off. The next day, I checked the building directory in the lobby. Third floor, 3103 113 134, number 312. I checked the fire evacuation map framed near the elevators. Same gap. It wasn't a printing mistake. The number simply didn't exist. That evening, my Wi-Fi signal dropped for about 10 seconds while I was sitting on my couch. The router sits near my front door. I've never had issues before. I opened the network settings on my phone. For a brief moment, just a flicker, I saw an available network. Unit 312-private. It disappeared before I could tap it. I refreshed. Nothing. I told myself it was a neighbor's hotspot glitching, but the signal strength bar had been full. 2 nights later, I woke at 1:59 a.m. for no reason. The building was quiet. No elevators moving, no doors closing. At exactly 2 a.m., I heard something in the hallway, not footsteps. A soft mechanical click, like a latch turning gently. I got out of bed before I could convince myself not to. Opened my door. The hallway light was already on, and for the first time I saw it. A line. so faint I almost missed it. An outline in the paint between 311 and 313, a vertical seam about 7 feet tall. Then another. The proportions were unmistakable. Door-sized, but there was no handle, no frame, no number plate, just a suggestion of shape under the surface, like something had been painted over too many times. I stepped closer. The air felt cooler again. My phone lost signal completely. No Wi-Fi, no cellular. I reached out and touched the center of the outline. The wall felt thinner there, slightly flexible, like hollow wood beneath drywall. And then, inches from my hand, the hallway motion light flicked off. Total darkness. I didn't hear footsteps. I heard breathing. Not loud, not close enough to feel on my skin, but present. On the other side, I stepped back immediately. The light snapped back on. The outline was gone. Flat beige wall. I stood there long enough for the fluorescent hum to feel sharp in my ears. When I finally went back inside my apartment, I locked the deadbolt, and I checked my peephole. From inside, I can see most of the hallway, except the section between 311 and 313. That angle is just slightly out of view. I went to the leasing office the next morning. "There used to be a unit there, didn't there?" I asked. The manager didn't look confused. She didn't look surprised either. She just said, "No." Then she held eye contact a little too long. That night, I didn't open my door at 2 a.m. I stayed in bed. At exactly 2 o'clock, I heard it clearly this time, a door closing, soft, controlled, directly across the hallway from me, not from 311, not from 313, from the space between them, a latch settling into place. I checked the peephole. The hallway was empty, but the motion light stayed on, and every night since, at 2 a.m., I hear that same door close, measured, careful, like someone stepping out and returning to a unit that doesn't exist. I've stopped checking the wall. I've stopped looking at the directory. But sometimes when my Wi-Fi drops for a few seconds, a network flashes briefly on my screen. Unit 312-private full signal. Then gone. And I've started noticing something else. When I walk past that section of wall during the day, I instinctively shift slightly to the right, without thinking, as if making room for someone coming out.